You order food without ever touching soil. You scroll, you tap, and dinner appears at your door in 20 minutes. It feels like magic. But 10,000 years ago, getting dinner meant something completely different, and the real answer to how that change happened is far stranger than people got smart and figured out farming. You've probably heard the simple version. Hunter-gatherers wandered. Then one day, somebody planted a seed. Civilization began. Clean story. Tidy timeline. Wrong on almost every count. The actual story is messier, darker, and far weirder, and it might change how you think about your own daily grind. For nearly 300,000 years, Homo sapiens lived as hunter-gatherers. They moved with the seasons. They ate wild grains, hunted game, gathered fruit and roots. And by most measures, they were healthier than the farmers who came right after them. Their bones show fewer signs of malnutrition. Their skeletons show less repetitive strain damage. Their average workload was surprisingly light, often just a few hours a day spent securing food. So why would anyone trade that life for endless, backbreaking labor in a field? That single question has haunted anthropologists for decades. Geographer and author Jared Diamond once called the shift to agriculture the worst mistake in the history of the human race. Harsh words for something we usually celebrate as progress. But the evidence backs him up in some uncomfortable ways. Skeletal remains from early farming communities show shrinking height compared to their hunter-gatherer ancestors. Worse teeth. New diseases that simply didn't exist before. Farming didn't make life better right away. In many places, for many generations, it made life noticeably harder. So what actually pushed people into it? Here's where the story gets strange. Archaeologist Ofer Bar Yosef spent decades studying a group called the Natufians, who lived in the Levant, modern-day Israel, Jordan, and Lebanon, around 12,000 years ago. Long before any crops were domesticated, the Natufians did something unexpected. They settled down. They built permanent villages while still living mostly as hunter-gatherers, harvesting wild grains with sickles and storing them for the lean months. That detail breaks the old story completely. Settlement came first. Farming came later. So what made people stop moving in the first place? Climate is part of the answer. A sharp cold snap known as the Yumber Dryas hit the region hard, drying up the wild food sources the Natufians depended on. Pressure built season after season. Long-distance mobility became risky when you didn't know what you'd find. And when wild grains became unreliable, some communities began tending the patches more closely. Weeding around them. Scattering extra seed nearby. Not to invent agriculture as a concept. Just to survive one more bad year. But climate alone doesn't explain everything. Something else was happening at the very same time, something almost nobody learns about in school. In the 1990s, German archaeologist Klaus Schmidt began excavating a hilltop in southeastern Turkey called Gökli Tepe. What he found stunned the entire field. Massive carved stone pillars, arranged in deliberate circles, built by hunter-gatherers before farming existed anywhere in the region. No village of farmers raised this site. People who still hunted wild animals and foraged wild plants somehow organized enough collective labor to quarry, carve, and lift stones weighing several tons each. Why would foragers build something that monumental? Schmidt's theory reframed the entire timeline of human history. He suggested that gathering large groups of people together for ceremonial or religious purposes, not simple hunger, may have been the spark that pushed certain communities toward farming. Feeding huge temporary crowds during these gatherings demanded a steady, large-scale food supply that unpredictable foraging simply couldn't provide. So instead of religion following agriculture the way we usually assume, religion may have demanded agriculture into existence. Sit with that for a second. The first fields might not have been planted out of desperation. They might have been planted to keep a festival going. There's a third piece to this puzzle, and it has nothing to do with starvation or temples. Archaeologist Brian Hayden proposed that early farming, in some regions, wasn't driven by need at all, but by status. In times of relative abundance, ambitious individuals may have used surplus food, especially rare or labor-intensive crops, to host elaborate feasts, build political alliances, and accumulate social power. Growing a special crop wasn't always about avoiding famine. Sometimes it was about being the one person in the group who could afford to give food away. Hunger, climate pressure, ritual obligation, social status. Farming wasn't one single invention with one single cause. It was an accident layered on top of another accident, and it happened independently in at least 7 separate regions of the world: the Fertile Crescent, China, Mesoamerica, the Andes, parts of sub-Saharan Africa, and New Guinea, each population stumbling into its own version of the same strange trap, with no contact between most of them at all. Look closely at the actual grain, and the strangeness deepens. Wild wheat shatters the moment it ripens, scattering its seeds onto the ground so the plant can reproduce on its own. That trait is great for the wheat. It's terrible for a human trying to harvest it. But every so often, a mutation appears in a wild stalk that keeps the seed head intact a little longer. Foragers harvesting with sickles would unknowingly favor exactly those mutant plants, simply because the shattering ones had already dropped their seeds before anyone arrived to cut them. Generation after generation, without anyone planning it, the wild population shifted toward the mutation. Humans weren't designing wheat. They were accidentally breeding it, just by choosing which stalks were easiest to cut. Not every group fell into this trap, and that contrast matters. Across vast stretches of Australia, the Arctic, and parts of California, hunter-gatherer societies thrived for thousands of years without ever adopting full-scale farming, even when they knew of plants that could theoretically be cultivated. Anthropologists studying these groups found that where wild food stayed abundant and reliable, there was simply no pressure pushing people toward the harder, riskier path of tending fields. Farming wasn't an upgrade humans rushed toward. It was closer to a last resort that some communities backed into, while others, given a real choice, avoided it entirely. Biologist Melinda Zitter, who has spent her career studying how animals were first domesticated, points out that this wasn't a sudden decision either. Sheep, goats, cattle, and pigs were drawn into human settlements gradually, generation after generation, through a slow feedback loop of proximity and selection that nobody planned out in advance. Humans weren't the only species changing. The animals around them were changing too, becoming dependent on people in ways that locked both species into a new relationship neither could easily exit. And once farming actually started, it became a trap in a very real sense. A community that starts farming sees its population grow faster than it ever could through foraging alone. More food, even unreliable food, supports more births. But more mouths locks people into needing more farmland. More farmland demands more labor. More labor leaves less time for anything else. Within a few generations, going back to the old hunter-gatherer life becomes almost impossible. There are simply too many people and not enough wild, untouched land left to support them. The door closes quietly behind you, and you don't even feel it shutting. Archaeologists call this a ratchet effect, a process that can move forward but almost never slides back, and once you see it in the bones of those early farmers, you start noticing the same shape everywhere else in human history. Researchers studying skeletal remains across multiple early farming sites found a strikingly consistent pattern. Shorter average stature. More dental disease, caused by carbohydrate, heavy grain diets, replacing varied wild foods. More evidence of chronic infection. Farming communities lived closer together, often right beside their newly domesticated animals, which created perfect conditions for diseases to jump between species for the first time. Many of civilization's first epidemics may trace directly back to those early fields and barns. Measles likely crossed over from cattle. Influenza has roots in domesticated birds and pigs. The very animals that made farming possible also opened a door that wild, scattered hunter-gatherer bands had mostly kept shut. There's an irony buried in all of this, too. Farming produced more total food than foraging ever could, which is exactly why it eventually won out across the planet, even in places where it made individual lives harder. More food meant more children survived infancy. More children meant more hands needed for fieldwork. More hands meant even more food was needed to feed them. The system rewarded its own expansion, generation after generation, regardless of whether any single farmer was actually thriving. Population, not happiness, was the metric farming was optimized for, and population is exactly what it delivered. So why does any of this matter to you, sitting here watching a video about people who lived 12,000 years ago? Because you are still living inside the system they accidentally built. Every grocery run, every meal plan, every alarm clock dragging you toward another long day of work exists because a handful of communities in scattered corners of the world stumbled into a food strategy they couldn't walk back from. You didn't choose this system any more than they did. You inherited a trap that has been running for 12,000 years, just with much better packaging. Your office job, your commute, your monthly budget, all of it sits on top of the same basic structure those first farmers built without meaning to. Produce a surplus, support more people, repeat the cycle, with no clean way to step off. The next time your alarm goes off for another day you didn't exactly choose, remember this. Somewhere in southeastern Turkey, a group of hunter-gatherers raised massive stone pillars by hand, then began tending the wild grain nearby just to keep the gathering fed. They thought they were solving one temporary problem. Instead, they built the foundation of everything that came after, including the life you're living right now. You think you're free to choose how you spend your days. But the real answer is that you're still finishing a harvest your ancestors planted by accident 12,000 years ago, one season at a time, and the field they started is still the one you're standing in today. What part of this video surprised you the most? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell notification so you never miss another fascinating story. Your support helps us bring more stories. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next chapter.